and is one of the woods foreman or woods engineer, live there now. There's a complete circle of houses here.
This house ahead on the right's the other one they built in the 60s, huh?
Yeah, and Bill Steers has lived in that.
He still lived there?
Yeah. And this house to our left here is Will Ernst lives there.
Get ready to burn it down.
And he is the man that sees that all the lumber gets sold.
Yes, sir.
How you doing, Will?
Good, how are you?
All right. We just kind of taking a little tour.
And what about this place on the left here?
Well, this place on the left here was built for the railroad, the man that was operating and running the railroad.
I'm trying to get you in the picture, Dad.
Oh, and I keep backing up, huh? Okay.
We need to work on you to make you a movie star now. So you say the railroad manager lived here?
The railroad superintendent, I guess you'd call him, lived in this big house here until he retired and left. He came out here from Texas.
What was his name?
Ferguson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when did he retire and leave?
Well, it's been quite a while ago, to tell you the truth. I'd say that it was in the late 60s. In the late 60s or real early 70s, and I'm not sure.
And there's another big one coming up on the left.
Yeah, there's another big house coming up on the left, and when that house was built, Carmichael moved from over there to this house because his kids got bigger and they needed a little more room. You'd think that house over there on the other street over there was big enough, but apparently it wasn't. So they built this big house here, and Carmichael lived in it until he left. And then they've been foremans lived in it all the time since then.
And then on the right here we have a bunch of little houses.
Yeah, we got a bunch of little houses that was built here after the mill started up.
Oh, these were extras then, huh?
Yeah. They didn't have enough houses for the employees, so they built about 8 or 10 more houses.
And that was probably in the early 40s or something?
Early 40s, yeah. Was built for the for the planer mill superintendent, a fellow by the name of Kaufman. And he lived in it until he retired. And that was in, I'd say that was in the, around the real early 70s or late 60s when he retired and left.
I thought Mary and Edgar lived in this thing.
And then after Marion Edgar, who was the shipping clerk in the planer mill, moved into this house.
Oh, okay. I always thought Marion lived in here for years.
Well, he did.
Yeah, but I mean prior to the 60s, huh?
No, well, maybe it was in the middle 60s whenever Mr. Hoffman moved, and then Mary and Edgar moved into the house. And he lived here till he retired. And there's one of the sawmill foremen lives in it now. These little houses on the lower side of the street here, I don't know who lives in them. Except the one on the end here, Roy Towers lives in that. He did live in the Antelope Meadows.
Yeah.
He had a chance to sell his place. He wanted to sell, and he had a chance to sell, so he sold, and then he came down here and rented this little house. He works over in the powerhouse.
Is Roy Sr. or Roy Jr.?
Senior.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was an electrician here for a long time, but for some reason he changed jobs.
And what about this house down here? It's a different color.
Well, that belongs to the school. The janitorial man lived in that for a long time.
Keep on walking there now. I just need to get behind you so I can see you.
And in his garage, the garage to that house, this is just an extra garage. And the school boys built that. The shop at the school built that. This man worked here at the school. He was the head man over at the machine shop by the name of Mr. Smallwood lived in this house right after it was built, and he never did live anything in any of the big houses that they built for the foremans. He liked this, and he lived here until he died. Then his wife lived here for a long time after that. And then her boy, Bud Smallwood, retired and moved up to La Pine. Bought him a place up at La Pine. Then Mrs. Smallwood, she left here and was going to live with Bud. But after they got up there, she saw inconvenience, so she went on up to Bend, and she's living in a place up at Bend.
Well, she's still alive.
And she's still alive.
Well,
yeah.
How old is she now?
Well, criminy sake, she must be getting close to 90 years old.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah. And then Bud is, he still lives up at La Pine, his wife.
Yeah, I remember she lived there a long time. Now, didn't Albert and Gladys Warren live in one of these for most of the time they were here too?
Down yonder about where that red car is. It's you still?
Yeah.
It's a pretty good place to live. They're real nice apartments, but there's no way to get to the backyard unless you go through the house.
More like a city than
than
a country.